Part 3. I hate my life. I've been doing this for over since it was lights out. Okay, I don't know how long it was. 4, 3:30. Yeah, 3:30ish, and then it's 7 now. So yeah, I still have all this to do. So yay. Also, I'm gonna pause the video every now and again so I don't run out of time, because I only have 15 minutes to do each video. So yeah. So bye. That same day, on the 27th, Damalala went to school, everything was good, and then when he finished school, he went to Peckham Library, as normal. He left the library around 4:50 p.m. to walk home. Here we see him leaving the library, he's jumping on benches, he's playing, he's happy. But within an hour of CCTV clips, Damalala Taylor would be murdered before he even reached his home. When he didn't arrive home at the usual time that night, his mother Gloria began thinking, of course, after what she heard the night before, she was really worried. What had these bullies done to her son? So she went out, she was really panicked, she was running the streets, retracing Damalala's route home that night, seeing if she could see him along the way. She was asking different people, his teachers, people at the library, anyone. But no one had heard or seen from Damalala, and she was almost home at this point. She'd almost done the full route and still no sign of him. However, when she was just a few streets away from the road, she was met with police cars, ambulances, and a whole crime scene tape off. So she ran up and spoke with the police officers that stood at this crime scene tape, and they told her that a young boy had been attacked, and Gloria knew that this was her son. It had to have been. So now the following story that I'm about to tell you is police's theorised version of events. It's believed that Damalala set off from Peckham Library and he pretty much got all the way home, almost, completely safe. That was until he got about 400 yards away from his own housing estate when he was stopped by some boys. This group of boys swarmed him, giving him the usual kind of verbal abuse, and it's believed that they were trying to mug him, they were trying to steal something from him, but Damalala didn't have anything, and he wasn't the type to give up so easy. He wasn't going to give anything up to these boys. Police believe in particular that they were trying to steal Damalala's silver coat that his mother had just bought him because it was starting to get cold in the UK, and this bright silver coat was what attracted these boys to Damalala. And when he refused to hand it over, these boys got violent. It's unknown exactly what happened to Damalala in those few minutes. We don't know what the kids were saying to him, what they were doing to him, but we know that it did end with one of these boys grabbing a smashed bottle from the ground and stabbing 10-year-old Damalala in the leg with it before they all fled. And this stab wound was very severe. It was right in his femoral artery, and the boy that had done it had twisted it slightly inside his leg. So this was a very big wound. It was a 6-centimetre S-shaped wound, and he was losing a lot of blood from it very quickly. It wasn't enough to render him completely immobile. He could still walk. It was like a stagger, but he could still move. However, if it wasn't seen to immediately, this wound would be fatal. And I think Damalala knew that. He knew that this was very serious. He must have been in a lot of pain. However, being the brave boy that he was, he got up and began staggering over to the nearest estate that he could to try to make his way home. He managed to pull himself to the opening of an outdoor stairwell, which was on an estate that was quite a while away from his own. It was going to be a long journey for him to try to make, especially when he was bleeding this much. But nevertheless, 10-year-old Damalala begins walking up these stairs, and he must have been in so much pain. And as he's getting higher and higher up this stairwell, he's getting more and more exhausted, until when he was almost at the top, he collapses. Meanwhile, as this was going on, a man that lived on this estate had been walking back home, and he'd walked past the entrance of the stairwell that Damilola had gone up, and he noticed that there was a trail of blood leading up the stairs. And this was a lot of blood. It wasn't a couple of drops, this was a lot. And this man knew that whoever had bled that much needed immediate help, and so he followed the trail of blood all the way up the stairwell until he found Damilola almost unconscious on the floor. So this man ran over to Damilola, he grabbed him, scooped him up in his arms, and he was checking him over, trying to figure out where he was bleeding from. And that was when Damilola looked up at him, tried to smile, and muttered what would be his last words. I'm okay. This man phoned the emergency services to try to get Damilola both police and an ambulance, and he said, "There's a boy bleeding to death. He's actually bleeding to death. This boy is approximately 12 years of age. He's lost a hell of a lot of blood." And as this man was on the phone to the operator, Damilola was fading in and out of consciousness, and this man knew that he didn't have long left. He said to the operator, "He's going." By this point, a few other people had congregated in this stairwell because this man had been shouting for help, and so there were about 5 people around Damilola at this point trying to stop the bleeding, or at least slow it a little bit. When paramedics arrived, they did all they possibly could at the scene. However, at this point, Damilola's leg had stopped bleeding, meaning that his heart had stopped beating and had stopped pumping blood around his body. Sadly, it was too late. Damilola was pronounced dead at the hospital just after 5:30. It's believed that he passed away in that concrete stairwell before paramedics even arrived, and all of this was going on just 10 days before his 11th birthday. His family have said that a silver lining in this was knowing that Damilola wasn't alone. Even though he was in the company of strangers, those strangers said that they were friends in that last few minutes that he had on this earth. Meanwhile, all of his family are in the waiting room at the hospital, waiting to hear what had happened to Damilola. And Tunde knows that he needs to contact Richard Taylor, his father, back in Nigeria. He calls him on the phone. And Richard was actually in the meeting at the time when the phone call came through. It came through to the head office, which he thought was unusual. Why was his family calling the head office and not his personal office? However, they said that it was urgent. So Richard came out of this meeting and found out that his 10-year-old son had been murdered. He said that once he heard those words, that Damilola had gone, everything was just a blur for him. He collapsed and later woke up in the medical centre being treated. After that, he made his way to the UK as quickly as possible could. He got the next flight out of Nigeria. However, he was followed the whole entire way by paparazzi and news reporters. They couldn't just give this man, this grieving man that found out his 10-year-old son had been murdered, they couldn't even give him a little bit of space. Although there was a lot of sympathy from the Taylors, because I think a lot of families could relate to this. This was a 10-year-old boy that was bullied. A lot of children do go through bullying. Parents feel really helpless, and everyone thought, well, what if it was my son? It's every parent's worst nightmare. Presenters, people that were interviewed surrounding this case, all said that they felt as though the UK lost a child. And it was the way that he passed as well, the way that he fought right up until that last minute, even telling the man that found him that he was okay. He tried to smile through it. He passed away in this cold concrete stairwell. Of course, the news and the media were bound to report very heavily on this case. This was an innocent child, an innocent 10-year-old who had been murdered on the streets of London and left for dead. This was a huge story. However, the usual media, the press, are never sensitive. They're never respectful. They never understand that the grieving family don't want to be interviewed. They follow the family around Taylor especially, he just couldn't deal with it, and eventually he had to refuse interviews, he had to refuse press, put into certain places, and he ended up actually having to go back to Nigeria. He didn't want to, he wanted to stay in the UK with his son, his daughter, his wife. Of course, they still needed to be over there for the treatment, but he just couldn't handle the media. However, before he left to go back to Nigeria, police reassured him that they were going to do absolutely everything in their power to find out who did this to Damilola and get him some justice. Over 60 investigators were assigned to this case, which is one of the biggest police murder investigations that they've had in years. They started by tracing Damilola's steps on CCTV. Of course, they got him on the CCTV in the library. They saw him in there. He was fine. He was in the lift. And then when he left the library, he's running around outside. He's playing with his friends. The last two people to see and speak with Damilola on that day before he set off home were his friend John and John's older sister Grace. And they were the ones that he was playing with outside. They were playing tag outside the library. Everything was good. And his friend John is actually John Boyega from the Star Wars films. He was friends with Damilola when he was 11 years old, and he helped Damilola kind of integrate into London life a little bit more. He went to the same school as him, and he was like his closest friend when he first got there. Anyway, on these CCTV clips, he's having fun, everything is normal, and then John and Grace say goodbye to him, and they set off on their separate ways to both go home. Unfortunately, Damilola's route home didn't have cameras all the way, and so they lose him on his route home. However, from what they could see, from the little bit of cameras that they did have, they didn't see anyone following him, anyone stalking him, anyone that seemed suspicious on these cameras. So they had no suspects yet at this point in the investigation. And so manual police work was going to be the biggest help here. Police literally going out onto the streets, looking around the area that Damilola was killed, trying to find any evidence, any clues, anything that was ditched, maybe a weapon. And that was when police found the broken shards of glass from that bottle that was used to stab Damilola, and it had Damilola's blood on it, so they knew that that was the weapon. DNA testing was still in its infancy at the time. They did run the glass shards through the system to see if any DNA popped up, but nothing did. And if Damilola's killer was another young person, like it was suspected they were, his mother, of course, told police about the bullying, and so that was the most believed theory at this point. If the killer was another young person, their DNA likely wasn't in the database yet. So that murder weapon was going to come in handy later on. If they ever got a suspect, they could then test the suspect against the murder weapon. Police also did a lot of door-to-door inquiries, going and knocking on people's doors and asking them if they'd seen or heard anything that night. They were also asking people if they knew of anyone that could have done this, anyone that was capable of this, had been violent in the past, you know. They were essentially just asking people to dodge someone in. And that wasn't really going to work because people were not willing to cooperate with police. At this point, tensions were very high between the UK police and everyone, really, but mainly minorities in the UK. This murder took place the following year after Stephen Lawrence's murder inquiry. So not his actual murder, but Stephen Lawrence was another black teenager that was stabbed and killed in the streets of London. It was another racially motivated knife crime that, you know, seemed quite unfair and dealt with very well. Black communities and minority communities in general didn't feel like the police were on their side ever.
Apparently this is going to be part 4.
They felt like the police were institutionally racist.
Yeah. So I'm gonna end this now. Be nice to each other, be safe, stay safe, and have fun. I will see you in my next video.